The stars shimmered against the black void as Captain Laura Mitchell stood on the bridge of the Defiance. She ran her fingers through her short brown hair and stared at the view screen. For 5 years she had patrolled the edges of human space. 5 years of routine. 5 years of peace. That peace was about to end. "Captain, we're picking up something strange," said Lieutenant Ryan Davis. His fingers moved quickly across the control panel. Multiple objects entering the solar system. "They're big, really big," Laura leaned forward. "Show me." The screen changed to display dozens of massive ships. Each one dwarfed the Defiance. Their dark hulls absorbed light rather than reflected it, making them look like moving holes in space. "Send a message to Earth Command." "Now," Laura ordered. Before Ryan could act, every screen on the bridge flickered. A face appeared, if you could call it a face. It had 4 yellow eyes arranged in a diamond pattern. Its skin was gray and textured like rough stone. When it spoke, its mouth moved in ways that seemed wrong. "People of Earth, I am Admiral Korthax of the Vraxian Empire. Your species has been observed and deemed worthy of inclusion in our dominion. You will surrender your planets, resources, and pledge your service to the Empire. You have 30 of your Earth days to prepare for our arrival and formal submission ceremony. Resistance is inadvisable. Those who resist will be eliminated." The screen went dark. The bridge fell silent. "Did that just happen?" Ryan whispered. Laura's mind raced. "Send that recording to Earth immediately. We need to—" A violent shake threw her against the control panel. Warning alarms blared. "We're being scanned by something powerful," called out Officer Judy Chen. "It's damaging our systems. Get us out of here," Laura ordered. "Maximum speed," toward Earth. The Defiance turned and accelerated, but 3 smaller Vraxian ships detached from the fleet and gave chase. "They're gaining on us," Ryan reported. Laura gripped the edge of her chair. "Send continuous updates to Earth. They need to know what we're facing." The Defiance shuddered as energy beams struck its shields. "Shields at 40%, Judy called out. "One more hit like that and we're done." Laura made a quick decision. "Drop a probe with all our data, then plot a course toward the asteroid belt. We'll try to lose them there." The ship lurched to the side, barely avoiding another attack. The probe launched, speeding toward Earth with its vital information. Mars Colony 1, Major Frank Collins led his Special Forces team through the underground tunnels. They had been stationed on Mars for routine security. Now they were fighting for their lives. "Keep moving," Frank shouted. His team of 12 had already lost 3 members to the strange weapons of the Vraxian scouts who had landed less than an hour ago. "Sir, the evacuation ships are ready," reported Sergeant Pete Miller over the radio. "But the aliens are closing in on the launch pad." Frank checked his weapon. "We'll create a diversion. Get the civilians on those ships." The remaining 9 soldiers followed Frank toward the surface. Through his helmet visor, he could see the red Martian landscape and the 3 Vraxian ships that had landed near the colony dome. The aliens moved with strange efficiency, their armored bodies making them look more like machines than living beings. They carried weapons that fired pulses of green energy, which had already melted through parts of the colony's defenses. "On my mark," Frank said, positioning his team behind a ridge. 3, 2, 1. 9 human weapons fired at once. The Vraxians turned, momentarily confused by the attack from an unexpected direction. 3 aliens fell. "The ships are loading." Pete's voice came through the radio. 2 minutes until launch." The Vraxians recovered quickly. They fired back, forcing the humans to take cover. Green energy pulses hit the ridge, turning the Martian rock to liquid that quickly hardened again. "Greg, Lisa, cover the right flank," Frank ordered. "Rest of you with me." The humans split up, trying to keep the aliens' attention divided. Frank led his group forward using the uneven terrain for cover, but the Vraxians had technology that seemed to detect their movements. "They're tracking our heat signatures," called out Corporal Amanda Torres. "Our suits are giving us away." As she spoke, a green pulse hit directly in front of her. The ground turned to molten rock, trapping her legs as it solidified. "Help!" she screamed. Frank rushed toward her, but 3 more energy pulses struck nearby. The ground shook. "Ships launching in 30 seconds, Pete reported. Frank looked back at Amanda, then at the evacuation ships beginning to power up. He made the hardest choice of his life. Fall back. Everyone to the secondary position. Amanda's eyes widened. Sir? I'm sorry, Frank said, his voice breaking. We can't. A direct hit from a Vraxian weapon ended the conversation. Amanda disappeared. In a flash of green light, Frank and his remaining team provided covering fire as the evacuation ships lifted off. One by one, his soldiers fell. Greg was hit in the chest. Lisa disappeared trying to reach another position. By the time the last ship cleared the atmosphere, only Frank and Private Ben Alvarez remained. We need to get to the emergency pod, Frank said, pulling Ben toward a hidden entrance. They ran through tunnels as explosions shook the ground above them. The small pod, barely big enough for 2 people, was their last chance to escape. As they strapped in, Frank saw something on the monitor. Vraxian ships were pursuing the evacuation vessels. Green beams reached out, catching the slowest ship. It exploded in silence against the blackness of space. No, Ben shouted. Frank closed his eyes for a moment. Then he activated the pod's launch sequence. They'll pay for this. The pod shot out from an underground tube, using the chaos of the colony's destruction as cover. As they accelerated away from Mars, Frank made a promise to himself. Humanity would not kneel to these invaders, not while he still breathed. On Earth, in her laboratory beneath the Cascade Mountains, Dr. Olivia Bennett examined the data from the Defiance's probe. As one of the leading xenobiologists on the planet, she had been immediately called in when the Vraxian message arrived. Interesting, she muttered, studying the scans of the alien ships. Her assistant, Nathan Powell, looked up from his own screen. What did you find? Their hull material absorbs certain radiation frequencies but reflects others in a very specific pattern. She pointed to a graph. And look at the biological readings we got from the bridge of their command ship. Their cellular structure is unlike anything we've seen before. Nathan frowned. Does that help us fight them? Olivia's eyes narrowed as she spotted something in the data. Maybe. Look at how their biological readings fluctuated when exposed to this particular frequency. As scientists worked, as soldiers fought, as ships fled and politicians argued, the Vraxian fleet continued its inexorable approach to Earth. Humanity had 29 days left to prepare for an enemy that had conquered hundreds of worlds. This empire had demanded humanity kneel. Humanity was about to show them what happened when you cornered a species that refused to give up. 3 weeks had passed since the Vraxian ultimatum. The world's leaders gathered in an underground facility beneath the Rocky Mountains. This bunker, built during the old Cold War and expanded over decades, now served as humanity's last hope. President Harriet Powell stood at the head of the conference table. Her face showed the strain of sleepless nights. The Vraxians expect our answer in 9 days, she said. Our official response will be to accept their terms. Angry voices erupted around the table. Silence, the president shouted. I said our official response. Unofficially, we will fight with everything we have. The room grew quiet as she continued. We've named our resistance plan Project Phoenix. We appear to die, only to rise from the ashes when they least expect it. The doors opened and Major Frank Collins walked in. His face had new scars from the battle on Mars. Behind him came Dr. Olivia Bennett, carrying a tablet filled with data. Major Collins will explain our military strategy, the president said, stepping aside. Frank moved to the front of the room. His voice was rough from breathing Martian dust during his escape. The Vraxians outgun us in every way, he began. But Dr. Bennett has found something that gives us an edge. Olivia stepped forward. The Vraxian biology has a weakness. They're extremely sensitive to a specific radiation frequency that doesn't harm humans. It won't destroy their ships, but it will incapacitate the aliens themselves. She displayed graphs and charts on the room's main screen. We've developed weapons that emit this radiation. In close combat, this will give our troops an advantage. But how do we get close enough? Asked the Chinese ambassador. Their ships would destroy us before we could use these weapons. Frank nodded. That's where the deception comes in. We make them think we've surrendered, get them to land, get them to lower their guard. The door opened again. A woman in a military uniform walked in. The stripes on her sleeve identified her as Commander Samantha Wright. Her blonde hair was pulled back in a tight bun, and her green eyes scanned the room with cold efficiency. Frank's jaw tightened at the sight of her. Commander Wright will be assisting Major Collins in training our strike teams, President Powell explained. With all due respect, Madam President, Frank said, Commander Wright and I have a complicated history. Samantha's voice cut through the tension. The Lagos operation 3 years ago, I made a call that Major Collins disagreed with. Your call got 5 of my people killed, Frank snapped, and saved 300 civilians, she shot back. We can argue about it later. Right now we have a planet to save. President Powell stepped between them. You two will work together because you're the best we have. Leave your past where it belongs, in the past. Frank and Samantha glared at each other, but nodded. Across the facility, in a separate lab, Alan Garcia typed furiously at his computer. As one of the world's top programmers, he had been recruited to find a way into Vraxian systems. The door to his lab opened, and his wife Maria entered. She carried 2 cups of coffee. You need to sleep sometime, she said, placing 1 cup next to his keyboard. Alan rubbed his eyes. I'm close to something. Look at this code sequence from their communications. Maria looked at the screen, though. The symbols meant nothing to her. As a diplomatic officer assigned to the Welcoming Committee, her job was to learn about Vraxian customs and hierarchy. Their language uses mathematical patterns, Alan explained. I think I can create a virus that would scramble their communications, maybe even feed them false information. Maria sat next to him. I learned something today that might help. The Vraxians have a rigid chain of command. If we can confuse their leaders, the rest won't know what to do. Alan considered this. So, if we target our virus at their command ships? Exactly, Maria smiled. They won't be able to coordinate their attacks. In another section of the facility, Frank and Samantha faced each other in a training room. 20 soldiers stood in formation behind them. These men and women will form our first strike team, Frank said. We have 3 weeks to make them ready for close-quarters combat against the Vraxians. Samantha inspected the soldiers. They look soft. They're the best survivors from Mars and the orbital stations, Frank replied. They've all faced the enemy and lived. That's not enough, Samantha said. She turned to address the soldiers. You survived by luck. Now you'll survive by skill. We'll train 20 hours a day if that's what it takes. A young soldier with a fresh scar across his cheek spoke up. We'll do whatever it takes, Commander. The Vraxians killed our friends, our families. Frank recognized the soldier, Private Ben Alvarez, the only other survivor from his Mars team. Anger will get you killed, Frank told him. Cold precision will keep you alive. We hunt these aliens not for revenge, but for humanity's survival. Samantha nodded in agreement, a rare moment of unity between the two commanders. In the weapons lab, Dr. Olivia Bennett worked with engineer Keith Rogers to miniaturize the radiation emitters. Keith was a tall man with dark skin and clever hands that could build almost anything. If we make them any smaller, they'll lose power, Keith argued, adjusting a component on the prototype weapon. Olivia shook her head. We need them small enough to hide in ceremonial staffs for the honor guard. Otherwise the Vraxians will detect them. Keith sighed and began reworking the design. You know, my father used to say that the smaller the tool, the harder the job. Your father was wise, Olivia said with a small smile. But he never had to hide a weapon from alien invaders. No, but he did have to hide tools from my mother when she wanted him to fix the sink instead of his car. They both laughed, a moment of normalcy in a world preparing for its greatest fight. Above ground, life continued as if surrender was inevitable. Cities built ceremonial platforms where the submission would take place. Television showed documentaries about the Vraxian Empire, based on the limited information available. People packed their belongings, unsure what life as a conquered species would mean. Only a select few knew about Project Phoenix. Only a few thousand people working in secret facilities around the world knew that humanity planned to fight. In the Rocky Mountain facility, President Powell reviewed the latest preparations with her Security Council. "The radiation weapons are almost ready," her Chief of Staff reported. "Collins and Wright have trained 5 strike teams. Garcia's virus is being tested on the systems we salvaged from downed Vraxian scouts." "And the ceremony?" Powell asked. "Everything is arranged according to the Vraxian instructions. The stage in Washington, D.C. is built to their specifications. The treaties of surrender are prepared." Powell nodded. "And the hidden weapons?" "In place. The Honor Guard has practiced with the disguised radiation emitters. They can activate them instantly on your signal." Powell stood and walked to a window that showed a digital view of the night sky. The same sky now filled with Vraxian ships. "We have one chance," she said quietly. "One moment to turn their certainty into confusion." Behind her, her advisors waited in silence. "If we fail," she continued, "humanity becomes slaves. If we succeed—" She turned back to face them, her eyes hard with determination. "If we succeed, we show the galaxy that humanity does not kneel." The day of submission arrived. Washington, D.C. gleamed under the morning sun. Thousands of people lined the streets, their faces a mixture of fear and resignation. Above the city, 3 massive Vraxian ships hovered like storm clouds. Smaller craft zipped between them, their engines making strange humming sounds that vibrated through the bones of anyone who heard them. In the White House, President Harriet Powell adjusted her formal jacket. The outfit had been designed according to Vraxian specifications, simple with no decorations or medals that might suggest military pride. "It's time, Madam President," said her Chief of Staff. Powell nodded and took a small device from her desk drawer. It looked like an ordinary pen, but inside was the signal transmitter that would activate Project Phoenix. She slipped it into her pocket. "Let's go greet our new overlords," she said, her voice calm despite the stakes. On the National Mall, a huge platform had been built for the ceremony. It gleamed with metal that the Vraxians had provided, material that changed color slightly as shadows passed over it. Thousands of human spectators stood behind barriers, watching in silence. Global news networks broadcast the event to billions around the world. Maria Garcia stood with the diplomatic team to one side of the platform. Her husband Alan watched from a secure facility beneath the city, his finger hovering over the key that would launch his virus into the Vraxian communication systems. "Remember," Maria had told him before leaving that morning, "wait for the signal, not a moment before." Now she straightened her spine as the first Vraxian shuttle descended toward the platform. Her job was to play the eager collaborator, to make the aliens believe humanity was not just surrendering but welcoming their new status. The shuttle's door slid open. Admiral Korthax emerged, his 4 yellow eyes scanning the crowd. He stood, nearly 7 feet tall, his gray skin looking like polished stone in the sunlight. Behind him came 12 Vraxian officers, each wearing what appeared to be ceremonial armor that shimmered with changing patterns of light. President Powell walked forward, her head slightly bowed as the Vraxians had instructed. 20 human representatives followed her, including leaders from the world's major nations. Hidden among the crowd, Frank Collins watched through binoculars. He wore civilian clothes, but underneath was a lightweight combat suit. Around the mall, his strike team was similarly disguised, each member carrying concealed weapons designed by Dr. Bennett. "Team check," Frank whispered into his hidden microphone. One by one, his team members responded, their voices calm and professional. Last came Commander Wright's voice. "Strike Team Alpha in position," she said. "Ready on your command." Frank didn't respond to her directly. Their personal feelings didn't matter today. Only the mission. Dr. Bennett stood in a mobile lab parked 2 blocks from the ceremony. Keith Rogers worked beside her, monitoring the radiation emitters hidden in the ceremonial staffs carried by the Honor Guard. "Levels stable," Keith reported. "When activated, they'll emit the precise frequency that affects Vraxian biology." Olivia nodded, her eyes fixed on the screen showing the ceremony. Everything depends on timing now. On the platform, Admiral Korthax spoke, his voice translated, through devices the Vraxians had provided. "People of Earth," the Admiral's voice boomed across them all. "Today marks your fortunate inclusion in the greatest empire the galaxy has ever known. Your service will bring you security. Your obedience will bring you purpose." President Powell stepped forward to respond as rehearsed. "The people of Earth are honored by your presence, Admiral. We offer our planet and our service to the Vraxian Empire." Korthax made a gesture with his four-fingered hand. Another Vraxian stepped forward, carrying an ornate box. Inside was a document written in both Vraxian symbols and English. "Sign this treaty," Korthax commanded, "and your transition into the Empire will be complete." Powell took the offered pen. She signed her name with a steady hand while billions watched. Other human leaders stepped forward to add their signatures. The ceremony was proceeding exactly as the Vraxians had planned. Maria Garcia approached Admiral Korthax with a practiced smile. "Great Admiral," she said with a slight bow, "Earth's most distinguished military leaders await the honor of meeting you. They have prepared a special honor guard to demonstrate our respect." The Admiral's yellow eyes blinked in their strange diagonal pattern. "This is acceptable. Bring them forward." Maria gave a signal. 20 humans in formal military dress marched onto the platform. Each carried a staff topped with a golden globe, the radiation emitters disguised as ceremonial objects. In the crowd, Frank tensed. This was the moment everything could go wrong. If the Vraxians detected the true nature of those staffs, the plan would fail before it began. But the aliens showed no concern. The honor guard formed two lines, creating a path between them. Admiral Korthax seemed pleased by the display. "Your species learns quickly. Proper respect will make your service to the Empire more valuable." The Admiral turned to President Powell. "Now, to complete the ceremony, you will kneel before me and place your forehead on my scepter as a sign of total submission." A Vraxian officer handed Korthax an ornate staff. The Admiral held it horizontally, waiting. Powell stepped forward. The moment had come. In facilities around the world, resistance fighters waited for her signal. In the crowd, Frank and Samantha's teams readied themselves. Under the city, Alan's finger hovered over his keyboard. Powell reached into her pocket, as if searching for a handkerchief. Her fingers found the small transmitter. She looked up at Admiral Korthax. "There is one thing you should know about humans, Admiral." The Vraxian tilted his head. "Speak." Powell's finger pressed the button. "We kneel to no one." The honor guard activated their staffs. Golden light pulsed outward, bathing the platform in radiation that was harmless to humans but devastating to Vraxian biology. The aliens staggered. Admiral Korthax dropped his scepter, his four eyes blinking rapidly in confusion and pain. The other Vraxians on the platform fell to their knees, their stone-like skin turning ashen. In the secure facility, Alan hit the key. His virus shot through. The communication systems the Vraxians had established on Earth then leaped to their ships in orbit. Confusion spread through the alien fleet as false orders and garbled messages filled their channels. Frank gave the signal. His team converged on the platform, weapons ready. Throughout the crowd, other teams moved into action. The stunned Vraxians, weakened by the radiation, could barely resist. Samantha led her group directly to Admiral Korthax. The alien leader tried to reach for a weapon at his side, but his movements were slow and uncoordinated. "Surrender," Samantha ordered, her weapon aimed at his chest. Korthax looked at her with hatred in his four yellow eyes. "You would dare?" he hissed. President Powell stepped forward, standing tall beside Samantha. "We not only dare, Admiral. We planned for this moment from the second you delivered your ultimatum." Around the platform, the other Vraxians were being secured by human forces. In the sky, their ships began to move erratically as Alan's virus took effect. "Your deception will not save you," Korthax said. "The Empire will send more ships, more warriors. You cannot hope to win." Powell's face showed. No fear. Perhaps, but today you lost. And that's enough to give humanity hope. As she spoke, cheers erupted from the crowd. People who had come expecting to witness their planet's surrender were now watching its first victory. The battle for Earth had begun. 3 days after the false surrender, Earth was in full rebellion. The Vraxian command structure remained in disarray, their communications still compromised by Alan Garcia's virus. Yet the alien ships in orbit continued to pose a deadly threat. Frank Collins stood in the war room beneath the Pentagon. Maps and holographic displays showed the positions of Vraxian ships throughout the solar system. "We've captured their commander and disrupted their communications," Frank said to the gathered military leaders. "Now we need to push the advantage before they recover." Commander Samantha Wright pointed to the largest display. "Our biggest problem is their flagship. It's holding position just beyond our reach and seems to be acting as a secondary command center." President Powell joined them, looking tired but determined. "What do you propose, Major Collins?" Frank tapped the display, zooming in on the Vraxian flagship. "A direct assault. We use the smaller Vraxian shuttle we captured to approach their ship. They'll think it's one of their own until we're inside." "That's suicide," said General Howard, the highest-ranking officer in the room. "Not with proper preparation," Samantha countered, surprising everyone by supporting Frank's plan. "The radiation weapons work. We've seen that. And now we have Vraxian armor from the captured officers." Frank nodded to her, a small gesture of thanks for the support. Their old rivalry seemed less important with each passing day. "Who would go on this mission?" Powell asked. "I would lead it," Frank said without hesitation. "Commander Wright would coordinate from our command ship." Samantha frowned. "No, I'm going with you." "This isn't up for debate," Frank started, but Samantha cut him off. "I speak Vraxian. I've been studying their language since we first encountered them. You need me on that ship." The room fell silent. Finally, Frank nodded. "Fine. We go together." In another part of the facility, Dr. Olivia Bennett examined a piece of Vraxian technology with Keith Rogers. It was part of the propulsion system from one of their smaller ships. "Look at how it channels energy," Olivia said, pointing to a complex pattern etched into the metal. "It's not just mechanical, there's a biological component." Keith adjusted his glasses. "Like it's partially alive?" "Exactly. And that gives me an idea." Olivia pulled up data from her earlier research. If their ships have biological components, they might be vulnerable to the same radiation frequency as the Vraxians themselves. Keith's eyes widened. "You're talking about turning their own ships against them." "Or at least disabling them," Olivia replied. "We need to modify the radiation weapons to emit a stronger pulse." Across the facility, Alan Garcia worked tirelessly to improve his virus. Maria sat beside him, translating Vraxian documents captured during the Washington attack. "They have a hierarchical network," Alan explained to a group of fellow programmers. "Each ship connects to the one above it in the chain of command. We've disrupted their communications, but they're adapting." "What about this?" Maria pointed to a symbol in the Vraxian text. "Their word for override. Could you use that to take control of their systems, not just disrupt them?" Alan considered this. "Maybe, if I can find their command protocols." He began typing furiously, lines of code filling his screen. The next morning, Frank and Samantha briefed their strike team. 20 soldiers, the best Earth had to offer, listened intently. "The mission is simple but dangerous," Frank explained. "We board their flagship, capture their battle plans and communication protocols, then get out. This isn't about destroying the ship. It's about gathering intelligence." Private Ben Alvarez raised his hand. "Sir, what if we can't get out?" Frank looked at the young soldier who had survived Mars with him. "Then we make sure the information gets out, even if we don't." Samantha stepped forward. "We'll wear modified Vraxian armor. The radiation emitters are built into the chest plates. One activation will affect any Vraxians nearby." The soldiers nodded, understanding the risks but committed to the mission. The captured Vraxian shuttle had been modified by Keith Rogers. He had installed human controls alongside the alien technology and added a hidden compartment for extra weapons. "Remember," Keith told Frank as the team prepared to board, "the shuttle's emergency beacon is coded to our frequency. If you need extraction, activate it and we'll come running." Frank clasped the engineer's shoulder. "Let's hope it doesn't come to that." The shuttle launched from Earth, its Vraxian identification codes allowing it to pass through space unquestioned. As they approached the massive flagship, Samantha reviewed her notes on Vraxian language. "When they hail us, let me do the talking," she told Frank. "One wrong word and they'll know we're not Vraxians." Frank nodded, watching the flagship grow larger through the view screen. "I never thought I'd say this, but I'm glad you're here." "Right." She gave him a small smile. "Save it, Collins. We're not out of this yet." The Vraxian flagship was enormous, at least 20 times the size of Earth's largest battleship. As they approached, a voice came over the communication system, speaking in the harsh syllables of the Vraxian language. Samantha responded, her pronunciation careful and precise. The Vraxians replied, and she gave a tight nod to Frank. "They're directing us to Docking Bay 3. They think we're bringing medical supplies." The shuttle slid into the enormous docking bay. Dozens of similar craft were parked in neat rows. Vraxian crew members moved around, performing maintenance and loading. "Supplies, armor on," Frank ordered. The team donned the modified Vraxian suits, their faces hidden behind alien helmets. They exited the shuttle in formation, mimicking the stiff movements of Vraxian soldiers. Samantha led them, occasionally barking orders in the alien language. When other Vraxians approached, their target was the ship's command center where the battle plans would be stored. According to the information extracted from captured officers, it was located at the center of the vessel. The team moved through massive corridors, passing Vraxian crew members who paid them little attention. The disguises were working. 2 levels, up, Samantha murmured through their private communication channel. "Then we need to find access Terminal 7. They reached a transport tube that would take them to the upper levels. As they waited for it to arrive, a group of high-ranking Vraxians approached. "Stand at attention," Frank whispered to his team. "Let them pass first." The Vraxian officers stopped near them. One spoke directly to Samantha, its 4 eyes narrowing. Samantha responded, but the officer didn't move. It spoke again, more forcefully. "What's happening?" Frank asked quietly. "He's asking why we're not at our assigned stations," Samantha replied. "I told him we have special orders, but he's suspicious." The Vraxian officer stepped closer, reaching for what appeared to be a communication device on its armor. Frank made a split-second decision. "Activate radiation emitters now." The strike team pressed hidden buttons on their stolen armor. Waves of invisible radiation pulsed outward. The Vraxian officers staggered, their movements becoming uncoordinated. "Move," Frank ordered. His team rushed forward, subduing the disoriented aliens. Alarms began to sound throughout the ship. Their cover was blown. "Change of plans," Frank announced. "We fight our way to the command center. No more stealth." As the team charged forward, Earth's first direct assault on a Vraxian flagship had begun. The tide of the war was about to turn. 6 months had passed since the attack on the Vraxian flagship. Earth had changed forever. The captured alien ship had given humanity access to technology beyond their dreams. Cities now had shields against orbital attacks. Human ships flew between planets in days instead of months. Frank Collins stood on the observation deck of the USS Liberty, Earth's first true warship built with Vraxian technology. The stars looked different to him now. No longer distant points of light, but places humanity might one day reach. The door slid open and Commander Samantha Wright joined him. Their relationship had evolved from bitter rivals to reluctant partners to something approaching friendship. "The President is ready for the briefing," Samantha said. Frank nodded. "Did you see the latest intelligence?" "Yes. The Vraxian reinforcements will reach our solar system in 3 weeks." They walked together to the ship's conference room. President Powell's face appeared on the large screen. Even through the digital connection, They could see the strain of leadership during wartime. Major Collins, Commander Wright. Powell greeted them. How goes the preparation? The fleet is ready, Madam President, Frank reported. 6 capital ships and 20 fighters, all equipped with Dr. Bennett's enhanced radiation weapons. And Operation Fury? The President asked. Samantha stepped forward. The strike teams are trained and ready. We can launch as soon as the order is given. Powell's image flickered slightly as she leaned closer to the camera. You understand what you're proposing? Taking the fight directly to Vraxian space is a massive risk. With respect, Madam President, Frank said, waiting for them to bring more ships to our doorstep is an even bigger risk. The President was silent for a moment. Then she nodded. Very well. Operation Fury is approved. May God help us all. After the call ended, Frank and Samantha reviewed the mission details one final time. 3 ships will make the jump to Vraxian space, Frank said. The Liberty will lead with the Defiance and Courage following. Captain Mitchell will be happy to hear her old ship has been upgraded for this mission, Samantha noted. Laura Mitchell had survived the initial encounter with the Vraxians and now commanded the Defiance. We'll need her experience, Frank replied. Once we reach Vrax Prime, we'll have only hours to deploy our forces before their defenses respond. In her laboratory, aboard the Liberty, Dr. Olivia Bennett made final adjustments to the radiation emitters with Keith Rogers at her side. These are 10 times more powerful than our original designs, Olivia explained to the soldiers who would use them. They'll affect not just Vraxian biology but also their ship systems. Will they kill the aliens? Asked Private Ben Alvarez. He had become one of their most reliable soldiers, earning a place on this crucial mission. No, Keith answered. They'll be incapacitated, not killed. Remember, our goal isn't extermination. It's to stop their aggression. In another section of the ship, Alan and Maria Garcia prepared their part of the mission. Alan's virus had evolved into something far more sophisticated. Once we're in range of their main communication hub, Alan explained to his team, this program will not only disrupt their systems, but allow us to access their central databases. Maria studied a holographic map of Vrax Prime. According to the information we gathered from Admiral Korthax, their command center is located here. She pointed to a massive structure at the center of the alien capital. That's our primary target. The final preparations were made, weapons checked, plans reviewed, last messages sent to loved ones on Earth. Then, with a flash of energy that bent space itself, the 3 human ships jumped toward Vraxian territory. The journey took only days using the captured alien drive technology. When they emerged from the jump, Vrax Prime hung before them, a massive planet with rings of orbital stations. No alarms yet, reported the Liberty's sensor officer. They don't see us. Frank turned to Samantha. We have maybe 30 minutes before they detect our presence. Launch the stealth probes. Small unmanned craft shot from the Liberty, racing toward the planet. Their sensors gathered crucial information about Vraxian defenses and transmitted it back. As the data came in, Frank noticed something strange. These readings don't make sense. Samantha studied the information. Many of the orbital platforms are damaged. It looks like there was some kind of battle here recently. Maria Garcia joined them, her eyes widening at the sensor readings. And look at these population centers. The energy usage is much lower than it should be for a thriving civilization. Alan's voice came over the communication system. I'm picking up transmissions from the planet. They're using emergency frequencies and... Wait, they're being attacked. The tactical display updated, showing a new group of ships on the far side of the planet. These vessels were nothing like the Vraxian ships they had encountered. Unknown. Craft, Frank ordered. Open a channel, all frequencies. The communication officer worked at her station. Channel open, sir. Frank took a deep breath. This is Major Frank Collins of Earth Vessel Liberty. We are approaching Vrax Prime. Identify yourselves. There was a long pause. Then a voice responded. Not Vraxian, but something entirely different. The translation software struggled to interpret the language. Earth Vessel. We are Resistance Coalition. Fighting Dominion Control. Frank and Samantha exchanged glances. Dominion? Frank asked. After more translation difficulties, the picture became clearer. The Vraxians themselves were not the ultimate power they had claimed to be. They were subjects of a larger entity known as the Dominion, which controlled hundreds of star systems through client species like the Vraxians. Vraxian rebellion started one cycle ago. Dominion ships coming to crush resistance. Frank made a quick decision. We came here to fight Vraxians, but it seems there's a bigger enemy. Let's meet with these rebels. Under careful protocols, representatives from the Resistance Coalition boarded the Liberty. They were a mix of Vraxians and other alien species Frank had never seen before. The lead representative, a Vraxian named Trelvox, seemed shocked to see humans. You were to be newest conquest, Trelvox explained through the translator. Korthax was loyal Dominion servant. When you defeated him, Dominion punished many Vraxians, sparked rebellion. Frank listened carefully. So our resistance inspired yours? Trelvox made a gesture that the translator interpreted as agreement. Dominion coming with great fleet. We'll destroy Vrax Prime as example, then go to Earth. President Powell, connected via secure channel, heard all of this. Her decision was quick. We came to fight an enemy. It seems the real enemy is this Dominion. Major Collins, you have new orders. Help the Resistance Coalition. Over the next few days, human and Vraxian rebels worked together, sharing technology and tactics. Dr. Bennett's radiation weapons were modified to affect Dominion biology. Alan's virus was adapted to penetrate their systems. When the Dominion fleet arrived, they expected to find a broken rebellion begging for mercy. Instead, they found a united force of Vraxians, humans, and other species ready for battle. The war was far from over, but as Frank Collins stood on the bridge of the Liberty, watching human and Vraxian ships fighting side by side, he knew that something historic had happened. Humanity had not only refused to kneel, they had sparked a revolution that might one day free the galaxy. President Powell's words echoed in his mind. The Empire demanded humanity kneel. We answered with fire and fury. And in doing so, we may have saved not just ourselves, but countless others across the stars.